crypto again by tweeting an NFT. Well, the last time we saw him doing that, the markets went crazy over the following months. Well, is that what's going to happen this time? That would actually be amazing, but is that too much to hope for? I don't know. So let's look at the charts and see what the price action is suggesting may happen. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain, and if you like money and crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do know I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul joins us, and Paul is an investor that invests in many, many markets. He's not a financial advisor either. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that only our Patreon members get access to. We do also have a free Telegram group. You can join. There is a link below, and we have a fantastic community there. If you haven't already, go ahead and make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And let's welcome Paul from Definity.
Strap in for the show. Absolutely. We could be on for a bit of a ride here at the moment. And so strapping in might be a good idea. Could get a little bit bumpy, but nothing terminal. Just a little bit of turbulence. Enjoy your drinks, and we'll be on our way again.
Yeah, as we joined and we're getting ready for the show, we were talking about it, that this turbulence. And that's why I don't play with leverage, is because we're at lows, at bottoms, and probably the coming 2 years is going to be great. Now, maybe the market takes off now, and maybe it takes 2 years, but a lot of the decline is over. But that doesn't mean there won't be some bumps taking us lower or something, which is why I don't mess with leverage anymore. Because from where we are here for the next 2 years, I do suspect it's going to do amazing. But that doesn't mean you don't need your seatbelts on, because it might be like on that plane with the massive turbulence.
Yes. I mean, even in massive bear markets, you can see incredible rallies that take positions out. That's usually equity related. So whatever the direction of the market is going in, you have to take into account that it's not going to be a straight line move, or it's very unusual for it to be a straight line move without some serious bumps and lumps along the way. And it's been a fairly clear run. I know we were targeting a little bit higher in Bitcoin. That hasn't changed, but there's a few macro things that are just being still a little bit sticky, which we'll come on to, that the market's not quite responding to as yet. But I still don't think we're going to change the big picture. We're still in a bull market, and I think retracements, if they come and as they come, will be an opportunity to buy, potentially.
CPI recently came out. How did that affect the other markets outside of crypto? How did that affect stocks? How did it affect some of the other markets you follow?
Right. So CPI was expected to be 5%, and it came in at 4.9%, which isn't much of a drop below, but it's a psychological level. And the market reacted on the number very aggressively. The dollar got sold, equities bounced, and everything moved in a positive way. Bitcoin, all risk-on assets jumped in the short term. I'm always a bit suspicious of the first move. I don't like it when it does that, because usually when that happens, there's a correction. And lo and behold, the market came back. And so it corrected all the way back, having gone all the way up. So it's telling me that what we've been talking about is that the Fed are very close to pausing, and that's what the headlines were saying. They were saying exactly what we've been saying. The Fed have got possibly room to pause, and I think they're going to be dropping interest rates towards the end of the year. It's just a question of when will the market pick up on that, and what will be the catalyst. Is there some bad news that needs to come out that will make the Fed start cutting? And this is what the market in the short term is fretting over. So I'm actually looking forward to potentially some bad news that will then shake out what could be the reason why the market's holding out on this rally, because it should really be going up. And that's broadly on stocks, commodities, and cryptocurrencies. Everything risk on currencies as well should all be going up. And there's a little bit of fragmentation, but equities are doing fine. There's nothing wrong with the charts there at all. It's just that Bitcoin seems to be correcting, and there's a few little pockets of weakness in places that I wouldn't really expect there to be weakness. So we could regard those as buying opportunities, but it just doesn't look like a clear path. And actually, you mentioned quite correctly that in Bitcoin there's a very short-term head and shoulders topping pattern, which means so it's a small pattern. The smaller the size, the smaller the correction. And why don't we have a look at that that pattern? This little head and shoulders pattern here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, would imply a correction potentially back to 25,212. Now, this was building up for a continuation pattern whilst it was in the center of this 28,547. So 28,547, if you can see how it's traded above and below and above and below, that's what I call the consolidation level. And so we're waiting for it to swing outside of that for a new trend. Now, the broad trend here is up, so I'm bullish, but this is definitely looking like it's forming a head and shoulders top, which is a sell, which means that we are more likely the balance is tipping towards a correction towards 25,212, which should be massive support. So I think if it does get down there, it should rebound and this trend should continue. And I still think the target is achievable of 32,951, which is up there. So after that correction, it should go back up again. So it's a small pattern, and it may not come off. It may just consolidate here, which would be a really interesting sign, because if you get a failure of a pattern, it's not just that it fails. It's like, well, what is the failure telling you? It's telling you that the bears can't get control of it here, and it then becomes a really bullish signal. So this is letting the market tell you what it wants to do. So if it can't go lower, and if it can't break lower on a reversal pattern, then the bias then shifts again to the upside. But for the moment, as we said at the top of the show, we need to be cautious, even though it seems like the plan or the strategy that we've been looking at seems to be playing out exactly as we expected.
Mm-hmm. So people that are new to these cycles, so a lot of people came in when things were going crazy in 2021, and they smart enough to stick around. So they've taken this whole ride down, and maybe there's a little bit more to go down. It's really hard to tell. But then there's a ride up, and sometimes that ride up goes really fast. Sometimes it takes a while, but they haven't experienced these rides up. And what's interesting about the rides up is it's usually kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So even if it corrected downwards and it came down to 25K, or even if it came down to 20K, you often see kind of the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it freaks people out. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm ready for it to go up. And they think that things are going to go straight up, and it just doesn't play out that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending if something comes into the narrative, right? So everybody's talking about this meme coin Pepe, which I will not endorse meme coins, because you might as well go to the casino and gamble. That doesn't mean you can't look at the price action and take a ride on it if you're good at technical analysis. But it is like, for me, I don't invest in it because I'm a fundamental investor. I want to know who the team is behind it, what narrative they're solving. And so meme coins are not my thing, just like gambling in Vegas is not my thing. Though I love Vegas, when I go there, I don't gamble. Just not my thing. I like to take better bets. And so, but Pepe has been taking off and probably going to correct a bunch. Why? Because it ran up, 300x or something from the bottom. And after something does that, massive correction. So even if we are on an uptrend, if something massively, massively pumps, things don't run forever. And then they pull back and correct downward for quite a while.
Yes. I think you hit on a really good point when you said that people who are new to investing and what they would look at. I think it's really important to look at charts if you're new to investing, even if you're going to use fundamentals. And the reason for that is that it can tell you what the trading signatures are in a certain market that you're going to trade. So if you look back and you see, well, okay, this is in the very recent past gone from 25,272 all the way back to 19666 in a quite short order. Look at the extent of that volatility and that correction. It's also aggressively made a low and rallied from the low down here at 1800 all the way up to 2223 in a very short order. So what's that telling us? This is telling us that this is a market that can be extremely volatile. There's pockets of sideways ranges, but ultimately this can be a very volatile market. So we have to accept that if we're going to start playing with a volatile market, then we've got to allow for big swings in price. And so again, it comes down to time frame, and are you looking to jump on week to week or day to day or minute to minute, it could be, or are you looking at the long term? And of course, when you're trying to analyze a market, you don't really know what other people are thinking, and how they should do it. And in actual fact, everyone should do their own analysis anyway. But when I'm doing it, I'm thinking, well, okay, my time frame is medium term, which I class medium term as the next few months to going on to 1 year. And in the medium term, I think that the situation is bullish, and I'm not going to change that call. Even when we were down here, we were saying the situation was bullish. During the bear market, we were just looking for a place for it to turn. And then we got the signal. So now we've got the green light and the bull market is going on. Doesn't mean it won't correct quite heavily from here and continue on its way. But time frame is very important. And it is, as I say, important to look at how volatile the market that you're trading. Some people use something called average true range, which is something you can put on your chart that shows how volatile the market has been over a certain period. So you can have a 10-day, 50-day, whatever you choose, a bit like a moving average. And that will tell you how much the market will move in that period of time on average. Of course, that doesn't mean it won't move more than that in a short term. It just gives you an idea. The markets are constantly changing, and that's the one thing that remains the same. So that's why we're always analyzing for signs of change. What's indicating that this is unusual? What is saying that this could be about to explode higher or reverse down? And technical analysis just uses the volatility as a sign that things aren't going too well when it's trending and it may correct, or very sharp, smooth moves as a sign that investors are buying and they're buying hard, and or vice versa, or they're selling very consistently and telling us that they're either getting in or getting out. So it doesn't mean also, some people look at technicals and say, well, because there's no fundamental analysis, kind of being wrong isn't an option, or they don't give you as much credit for being wrong when you're wrong, or leeway for being wrong, when lots of sort of mainstream economists get it wrong all the time. In fact, they're known for getting it wrong, but they've got just better stories around why they got it wrong. And they tend to talk about, if you look at most of the analysis that comes out there, it's very much, investors they'll talk about the short term, and they'll talk about what's just happened, but they won't tell you what's about to happen. And that's the difference between an investor and trader and an economist who's just telling you what the weather was like yesterday. I could do that all day long. It's very easy just to say this is what has happened, but the game of prediction and investing is much harder, because you're trying to assimilate what could happen much further in the future. And coming back to that on what we discussed last week, which was really interesting, because we had a question from somebody asking, how can you be bullish when all the data looks bearish? That's really exactly it. You're forward looking, so it's never going to look right, and it's something to get used to. And it comes back to what we talked about many months ago. In fact, when we first started speaking about contrary opinion theory and how you would look at certain properties. Contrary opinion theory, no matter whether you're a fundamental analyst or a technical trader or anything in between, that is the one consistent thing that all investors talk about, how you have to be contrary, but you have to know what being contrary is. Contrary is not just buying something that's destined to hit zero because you think everybody else is wrong. That's not a contrary trade. It is just knowing how to read hope, fear, and greed, which always permeate the markets. So it's a fascinating game. and it's the kind of rules stay the same, but they're also very hard to implement because it's a psychological game as well.
Well said. Want to welcome everyone joining us for the stream. Chris Ashby in the house, Sailing on 2021 in the house, and Jay Solo 9. Thank
Jay
you,
Solo
everyone.
9. Like it.
Yeah, we threw them all off because, you know, we did this Thursday instead of our regular Wednesdays.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's completely my fault. It's my diary clash, but I'm glad to be here on a Thursday.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Wanted to get in. Let's jump into. We have a long list of altcoins. A suggestion from the audience from last week's video. Now, if you want us to review next week a video or a certain project, go ahead and put it in the comments section below the video. We might have time to take some live ones as well, and if we do, we will jump to those. But I do give preference to the people who suggested something last week, and especially if they put a little bit of fundamental analysis behind it, then they definitely get preference. So Abe asked if we could cover Myria. He says they just recently released and their token seems to be a decent buy. So there's not a lot of history on this chart, but let's take a look at it and see what we can see.
Yeah, sure. Let's jump in. I think my order's gone. Perhaps might be slightly off. Is this the right one? Because I found Myriad, but not Myria.
Yeah, it's not the right one. Myria, right. I know CoinMarketCap has it, but it's not that great for charting. You might have to scroll even way down. None of those are it.
No. Okay. Right. Let's go to CoinMarketCap then. Here we go. So
there we go.
Yeah. Right. So what is going on? I know. Yeah. So obviously we haven't got the other chart, and there's not a lot of data. So what we're seeing here, probably, you can see this as well. The market has gone downwards and is just forming a low around here. This. I wish I was able to point without this thing dropping in front. I'll try and do it up here. So this area here below where my cursor is, this looks like it's trying to form some form of base. But the problem is that this trend is still negative, and it did it here and then went down. So we'd need to see some form of breakout of this pattern, because it does tend to scoop up and then trend down, scoop up and then trend down. Is this a scoop up before it trends down? I don't know. So I'd have to wait for a bit more evidence. There is no more history, so I can't say any more on it. But the most positive thing we can say is that it made a reversal candle, which is on the 8th of May, and it's now moving up from that. And that's called a doji. If you see where the open and the close is the same, that's usually a reversal sign. It's quite a weak candlestick pattern. It's not like an aggressive buy, but it's usually enough to say that the market's going to change trend. And you look for confirmation, which you got on the next green candle. So if one had bought it from here, and I know obviously you've got to go back, then I'd be willing to hold it. So if I was buying it here, that would be where I'd put my stop loss, below this third of a cent level, because that was the first buy signal. But you have to be careful, or I would think I'd need to be careful buying it, because it's not very far away from its, on this chart, all-time low. So when there's not much of a margin between the current price and the all-time low, it may not take obviously very much before it turns down and breaks that, and that is a clear sell from a technical point of view. So highly speculative. I can see why it might be interesting, given the way it's just traded off this low. With very little data, it's difficult to say much more about it. But for me, it's a wait. It's not an all-out sell. It's a wait. I'd just have to wait a bit longer. Now, you might think that this is a bit crazy, but I'd have to wait for it to at least cross this line here, because that was the last rally attempt. And if it takes that out, then it's telling me that there is much more strength. And I admit fundamentally, this may have some really solid reasons to buy it, and I'd have to be chasing the price action that you've already got yourself involved with. But I have to follow my technical rules, and that would be how I would view it. I need to see that pattern break out. But interesting one. Thanks for putting it on the show.
Yeah, Abe, great suggestion. I definitely wanted to talk about Myria anyway. I'm heavily invested in this project, so I'm biased. And why did I invest in it? Well, I'll share with you. As I think about them, they're a competitor to Gala, and Gala's done exceptionally well on their price. They have a model that's similar to Gala in that they're launching a bunch of games on their platform, on their blockchain. And so Gala, one of the things I have to do in order to see where Myria can go is compare it to Gala. And thankfully, we have something to compare it to. Now, Gala's been out for a while. You can see its token was tradable all the way back in 2020. It did tremendous during the later part of the bull market when, after Facebook announced Meta, Gala absolutely took off, and it went almost to, well, it only shows 71 cents here, but I think it went even higher. There was someone I know that had some Gala nodes, and he was literally making about $10,000 per month per Gala node that he had, because for Gala nodes, for running the Gala node, you get to reward as tokens, which is how a lot of their tokens enter circulation. So with Gala, you see the circulating supply is almost 7 billion tokens, with the total supply about 5x over that. So about 20% of Gala tokens are in supply. And you see the market cap is 200 million. The fully diluted market cap is about $1 billion. Okay, that gives us something to compare to, but it has been out for a while. Gala has shown more. It has more games that are closer and ready to play, though Myria has been developing at a very fast pace, and it seems like they might be catching up. Now, Myria is running their own. Myria has its own ETH layer 2, essentially. And so it's a little bit different than Gala in that, and I would say a little bit better. Its current market cap is only at 8.5 million, so substantively lower than Gala's 200 million. However, do know this grows every day as these tokens start coming into circulation, because a very, very small percent of the tokens are currently in circulation, or about 4% right now. And under 4% of the total amount of tokens are in circulation. So since you can't really compare token price without figuring in market cap, what I look at is, well, where is the fully diluted market cap versus Gala's? So Gala's is about 1 billion. The fully diluted market cap on Myria is 163 million. So what I'd say is, okay, I like that. It's in a buy range, though I don't rate this a buy right now. I rate it a wait or a sell, only because we're still in like a market where things are slower, and there's still going to be a lot of node holders like myself that are getting tokens vested, and I'm tempted, and I probably will sell my first month's rewards. Why? Because I think the price will get even more attractive, because there's probably, with the token vesting, more sell pressure than there's going to be buy pressure, which means I suspect that the price is going to get even juicier, and I like buying low. So if, hey, I can sell now and buy even lower in a month from now, isn't that a big win? Now, is this a bad price? Not at all. Myria, I'm really impressed with most of what I've seen, and they have onboarded like 150 other games that are going to build on their ETH layer 2, and so they're really crushing it with partnerships and other things. I think this is a steal of a buy. I just suspect it's going to get even better. So if I had 0 tokens myself and 0 nodes, I personally would nibble a little bit, just because there's no guarantee that price goes down more. But then I would be waiting to see that more comes out. Now, in the situation I'm in, I have 21 nodes, and they're going to continue emitting tokens over like the next 5 years. So even if I sell 100% of the tokens I have, I'm going to get more tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. So it gives me in a strong position that I can take the risks of selling it to buy lower. But I don't want to tell you guys buy and ever like sell into that. I would feel so weird and sheepish and like a loser if I was saying you guys should buy and then I'm selling to you. So that's probably what I'm going to do. And do I think that this is a buy range? Yes. I just have 5 years worth of tokens that are going to vest to me over a while. And I think if I sell, I can buy some other things that are cheap and I can buy back the same amount that I sold, possibly for much cheaper. And so it's a good way for me to roll some of the liquidity into some other steal of a deals that I'm looking at that are so cheap and probably even buy the same amount that I sold right back. Because do I believe in Myria for the long term? I think it's got a fantastic shot at doing well. When I spoke with the owner, the main founder of Myria a year and a half ago, I was so blown away by that guy and his background and who he is, and yet he was so humble, and yet I got this feeling when I talked to him that I get around very few people where I'm just blown away by who they are. And whenever I've got that feeling around somebody before, they ended up being a very substantial person. So companies follow like good leaders, and I think they got a great leader at the helm of this. So I like Myria. I'm very big on it. Let's take a look at great suggestion. Thank you so much, Abe. Let's see. We got Chris Ashby asked us to look at Bump and XDC. So Bumper and XDC. Why don't we take a look at Bump first?
Yeah.
Let's see. Chris specifically said Bumper special announcement will be out. I like XDC because it's ISO 222 coin, which has a major part to play in the future, but also has a unique use case of being the leader in global trade. There is over $1 trillion market there. Thank you. So let's take a look at Bumper and see what you're liking or not liking on the price.
So we have said fairly consistently that this looks like it's forming a major reversal pattern. There is some weird price action that I don't particularly like. Obviously, you can see how this price action is very spiky. Whether that's bad data or not, I'm not sure. To be fair, it's settled down recently, but there are some weird gaps and stuff that it affects the chart. So, with that caveat, the overall pattern has been a bear market with a big rally, another bear market with a rally, which looks like it's forming this major inverse head and shoulders. So potentially it's got a little bit more to go in the correction. Now, sometimes the right shoulder correction is much shallower, and it doesn't necessarily have to go all the way back down to here to 2 cents before it starts to rally again. In fact, it's better if it's a bit shallower because it shows that you're in a bull market and the buyers are coming in quicker. But having said that, it's actually held very well in this range. So from here, from what is the major trend that's going on at the moment, with everything else, it does seem to be recovering. And I think we've discussed how this should, I personally think this should be tied quite well to the bull market in cryptocurrencies generally. So think everything's going up, this should go up, I believe. So it should be correlated to the broader market. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just think that what they're doing, the more people that are involved, in a market in a bull trend, and that means more customers, even though in a bear trend they can still give you a product that would help potentially, that there are more people that are always involved in a bull market. So it stands to reason, I think, that this should go up with broader volumes in the market. So given that we're in a bit of a correction generally, it's not surprising that this has gone sideways for a bit after a very decent rally. So my feeling is that it's a wait for the moment, but I do like it, and I think it won't take much for me to start wanting to buy it again. I just want to see how this correction plays out, whether it's just going to get a bit lower and then start to go up, or if indeed it holds this very key support here excuse me, this very key support here at 5 cents. It's just bouncing along. You see, you've got 1 and 2, and it held there, back there, and it was resistance here as well. So it's hanging around this key level. If this breaks, I think there'll be a bit of a downdraft, which is why I'm a bit cautious just in the short term. But if we get through this corrective period in the broad crypto markets and it's still above it, then it will shift. The bias will shift to the upside, and anything approaching a break of this 6 cents, 6.5 cents, I think will look very interesting for a move upwards. So I'd get bullish through there, just because that is really the major resistance on the chart at 8 cents, and above that, I think it has a lot of bullish potential, because this big base would have completed, and we'd be potentially off to the races. So have to be a bit more patient with it for the short term. Probably worth a nibble, as was said before about some of the other markets. But I just don't think it's quite ready yet to move. So that's the only reason why I'm being slightly cautious right now.
Nice. Thank you, Paul. And great suggestion, Chris. I love the fundamentals behind Bumper. This project, let me show you where it's at. And this is why this is the kind of deals that I love. I look for these type of opportunities that are so amazing. First of all, their market cap, even though it's tripled. Now in December, one of my gold subscribers to the Patreon, he reached out to me and asked me what some of my top picks were. And so I responded to them. Then I shared it with a bigger Discord group. And Bumper was right at the top of the list, with also Animal Concerts. And so back then it was about 2 cents. And since then it has gone up to 6.2 cents. So it's 3x'd. But look how bad the market cap was when it was 2 cents. That means its market cap was like 1.3 million. And it's still only 3.7 million, which is abysmally low. And it is really hard to time the bottom. He happened to ask me at a good time, and because I just wanted to make sure he was getting the value for putting that faith in the Rainmaker family. I put some thought into my response with him, and I said, this is one of the most undervalued projects, in my opinion. Happened to be right at the bottom, which is unusual to catch things right at the bottom, because I was buying more at that time. And it's since gone up, and maybe it'll come back down that cheap. I don't know that it will. Might get cheaper, as Paul mentioned, from here. And fantastic. So I have to look at things, and the way I look at things is, if you could rewind time, and you've all seen what Cardano has done over the past 3 years. If you could rewind time to 3 years ago, and the bottom of Cardano was at 1.7 cents, and the top went to $3.40. Now, if you had a magic crystal ball and allowed you some time travel to see the future, but you could also time travel back to the past, but for whatever reason wouldn't let you be exact on the day, but you could rewind it and you could buy Cardano at 6 cents, would you? I would. Well, shoot, that's not the low of 1.7 cents. You're right, it was just a pretty good price. Well, with the market cap this low, if the Bumpers team, they're about to release their mainnet in the coming 3 months, I think August 1st. If things come together and it does what they hope it'll do and it gets traction, this thing could have a market cap in the tens of billions of dollars. Now, that's an if. I don't have a magic crystal ball. I can't see if it's going to all come together right. I was an early investor in Axie Infinity. I was like, if this game gets traction, it could be worth something. But if it doesn't, it'll be worth nothing. And so there's this big if. I can't guarantee it'll get traction. We don't know that their mainnet will work. But I like the odds. And I like the team behind it. The team behind it is top-notch. Jonathan has joined us multiple times on the show. He is so intelligent, and he's intelligent enough to not only know all the deep stuff, but to be able to explain it in a simple way, which is really rare to have somebody that intelligent can not only understand all the deep aspects, but break it down in a very simple way that anyone can understand these complex ideas. He's brilliant. And so I like the team behind it. I like this project. For me, even at this price, it's like if you don't have any, well, you got to decide for yourself, because none of this is financial advice. If I didn't have any, I'd be like, well, I'm going to buy some. And I'm going to wait and hope it gets cheaper, because then I'm going to buy more. I do have a lot of this, and I'm, in the liquidity providing right now, and the rewards for that are really, really good. So I'm providing liquidity and getting great rewards. So I get more bumper like every 7 days, and it's really exciting.
I think I should get some.
Right.
You talked me into it.
I'm really excited about this one, and I don't know. I'm like, oh, where could this go if it's successful? Tens of billions of dollars in market cap. Where's it at right now? 3.7 million. Will it do that? I don't know. I'd need a crystal ball to know for sure, but I like the odds. They're good enough.
Yeah.
Why I don't like gambling, it's like gambling, the house wins over time. Now, you can be really good and count cards at like 21, in which case you reverse the odds so that they're in your favor. And guess what? The house is going to kick you out because you can't gamble where the odds are in your favor. So in investing, what I'm always looking to do is get a lot of information, do a lot of research, so that the odds can be in my favor. And there's no casino to kick me out. And so why would I like gambling when I have a 47% chance of winning versus the house's 53% chance of winning? I like to invest where I have good odds to either, if I'm right, say I have a 50-50 shot, but if I'm right, I make 100x. And if I'm wrong, I lose everything. Okay, well, I'll take that, and I'll just diversify across 10 things. And, like maybe I'm wrong half the time and I'm right half the time, and I massively won over a 3-year period because some of the things I bought went to 100x and the things I was wrong on went to 0, but that's okay. Overall, that strategy is a winning strategy. All right, let's jump over. Let me check comments real quick. Bill Gardner, thank you for the super chat. Bill Gardner says, great time to buy. How about grab some more OMI? Yes. You know what? Let's add OMI in at the end of the suggestions. We'll take a look at that. Speaking of, we were talking about Myria, and Myria's competitor is Gala. And Vaccinated Anti-Vaxxer says, I like spider tanks on Gala. NFT is kind of pricey, even though the bear market, but good, quick multiplayer game. Good point there. I've heard good things about it. I haven't played it yet. Tommy Vesper asking us to look at Meld. I read Ken Oling submitted for Binance listing. Well, that's good news. I do like Ken. He's joined our channel a number of times. Perfect. Haha, thanks for telling me not to buy based on your bag. Yeah, right. So great. Let's look at the next one on the list, which is XDC.
Yeah. So XDC is basically, this is in a very nice upward trend, and we've seen how, from the long-term perspective, we've got a high up here at 19 cents, and it's coming into a correction, which is fairly much it's pretty much par for the course for everything. Let's just get this chart working properly. So the overall big picture trend is still bullish. We've had this bearish trend, and it's stopped at a much higher low, which is exactly what we'd like in a broad bull market. And then we can go into the shorter term, which shows us what it's done this year. So it's moved in correlation to the broader market, to Bitcoin and the majors. And this looks like a basing pattern. It's enough of a basing pattern, consolidation, to start a new fairly significant rally, which is what it seems to be doing. That rally has petered out against resistance points. And if you've listened to the channel for a few weeks or months, you'll see that I do look out for these points based upon how the market reacts on the way down. And sometimes, they can really hit bang on, sometimes not. I mean, it's not always an exact science, but these are the levels where I would look for a reaction. And it got close to it, didn't hit it, but we've had a reaction from an area that was significant on the way down. And that's to be expected. And a straight line move up, again, we've said before, isn't really very realistic. It's actually better sometimes that the market does correct and it stops the market becoming broadly overbought, especially if we're not in the right point in the cycle for an overblown blowout to the upside. Even though it might feel nice for that to happen, it just creates a lot more volatility and uncertainty. So overall, I think this is quite a nice trend, and I'd be willing to pick it up if it got just a little bit cheaper, because it's in quite a sharp correction here, or smooth correction, I should say, and it's about to enter some support. Now, I don't know if I'm just trying to be too clever to pick the exact support point where it turns around, but it feels like there's a little bit more to come, and then I think it would be worth jumping in for a buy, especially near this purple line, which is the 200-day moving average, which many traders look at, which is also close to the upward trend line. So it seems like a nice place to enter potentially along. And you've also got all the support here. You can see how it tried to break out a few times, and when it eventually did, this is a cushion of support for the market as well. So it looks like it's heading back to that level. Broadly speaking, as I say, the big picture is bullish. The shorter term picture is bullish as it's turning around from this this base, but just in the next few days to week or so, I think it might go down just a little bit more and give a better price. But so that's why it's a wait for me. But broadly speaking, it's bullish.
Fantastic. Good suggestion by Chris Ashby. A little bit on the fundamental side. So this market cap's higher than really what I'm buying. I would put this in blue chip category, and it's a good blue chip. It's also in a nice retracement, so you're not buying at the highs when it really started being pumped and went all the way to 4.5 cents. It's now back to 3.4 cents. Okay, so it's back on discount. I would rate this as a long-term buy, right? For those that are looking for blue chips. You see right here in this comment, I'm currently holding a decent chunk of XRP, XDC, XLM, LCX, and Algo. And so this person's holding mostly blue chips, and that's a lot of people's strategy, right? And I think XDC is a great blue chip in there for people that really don't want to get into the riskier stuff. Often it won't have as much reward, but it also has less risk, especially being an ISO 220 coin. So yeah, it gets a buy for me. Am I buying it? No, I'm in the riskier stuff this time around. Next time around, I will be more in the blue chips. Maybe even a big stake in Ethereum, just earning some passive rewards on something that I feel is less risky, because I'll be looking for a lot of residual income. All right, great suggestion. Let's take a look now at Compound.
Yeah, so Compound is in a bear phase. So see, this is the bear market, and it's gone from that bear phase into this consolidation, which is usually big enough to form a base for which the market can project a new bull phase. But it's just that final bit that hasn't obviously happened as yet. It's still stuck in this range, which is not a great sign given that everything else, or there is signs of life in other markets. Anything that's rallied has come back and is forming a higher low, whereas this is rallied in this move and it's lost the whole of those gains, and it's again approaching some very significant lows. So that's got me a bit concerned. Whether it's enough to just completely bail out at this stage, I'm not sure, because I do like the bigger picture for everything. This needs to respond, and it's not. So it's definitely a wait. I can't buy something like this. Even if it bounces off this lower line, I'd still be waiting for it to actually head much higher. I'd have to be buying it over 60, which again, you might say, well, why don't you just buy it here? It seems cheaper, but the problem is I don't know whether it's going to get even cheaper and keep going down. And I can't buy into something like that. Technical analysis, the discipline of it doesn't allow you to do that. So for me, it's a wait, but this consolidation is definitely a big one. And I'd be worried if it takes that lower line out, because that could be projecting much lower prices. But it hasn't done it yet. That, it will have to wait and see exactly how it trades as it gets close. I mean, it's nearly there, isn't it? It's only 33. It's only about $3 away from it. 33 should be some very good support. So I'd be watching that extremely closely. But as I say, even if it bounces, I still have to wait. 42 is the center of that range. So I'd start to feel much better if it got through 42 for a short-term play, potentially going up to 60 to 61. But it's not until it breaks out through all this resistance that I'd be convinced that it's based out enough for a bigger rally. So the reason why I'd be buying it around 60 is because I'd be looking for a move over 100, or at least towards 98, that big resistance there. So it might not sound like it makes sense to buy it more expensive, but the reason why I'm buying it more expensive is because the base is then confirmed and the probability increases that it will then move up into a stronger bull market. So as was said before, it's all about probabilities, isn't it, really? And at the moment, it's not responding enough for it to be a technical buy.
Yep. Doesn't fit within your criteria, and you wait for a different point in this cycle to buy when the probabilities are highly stacked in your favor. And right now, the probabilities aren't stacked high enough in your favor.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I like the current price it's at. Compound, interesting story on Compound. And if you look at the chart, you'll see it goes all the way back to the summer of 2020. Well, what happened in the summer of 2020? That's when DeFi really took off, and we had this thing called DeFi summer. Now, normally they say sell in May and go away. Well, in 2020, it didn't happen that way, and there were lots of projects that went 100x, some of them even 1,000x or 2,000x. In the middle of the summer period of 2020, as DeFi really came into being, and Compound was one of those big protocols that really, what they were doing was revolutionary at the time, and it still is, and it's hit big enough traction that probably they'll stay around. Now, I haven't followed their project in depth to know if they're keeping up to date, though I imagine they are. So there's some concerns. They're cheaper than they've even been since it started being tracked on CoinMarketCap, though I'm sure prior to it being tracked on CoinMarketCap, it was even cheaper than it is now. We just can't see that price history. So it's at $34. Is it a good buy? Probably. Like I've said before, I'm not buying a lot of things within this market cap range. I consider them blue chips, and I'm in the riskier stuff. In the riskier stuff that has a higher probability of going to zero, but also has a higher probability of possibly 100xing. And so I'm diversified across mostly much more risky stuff than where Compound is at. For those blue chip buyers, is it a pretty decent buy? Well, I like buying on the lower trend line, and looking at Paul's chart showed it. Oh, he's got.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. Lower. It's okay. You can go back to it. Yeah.
I like buying along that lower trend line. Now, the downside of buying along that lower trend line is that it could break through and go cheaper. And I'm patient, because if something like that does happen, I'm like, well, darn it, I'm just going to have to wait longer. And the reason Paul doesn't do those things, because Paul is looking at so many charts, he can wait till things are in the sweet spot, because at any given time, he's not just trading the crypto market. It might be stocks or other things. So he's always got things he can be trading in that sweet spot. And that's what he's waiting for. And he doesn't pull the trigger till then. And it works fantastic. I'm only trading crypto because I like the volatility. And I put the research in to feel good enough about the bets that I make, that I'm then looking for things, and I don't mind trading that lower trend line if I like the future of the company and think it will do well. Now, is Compound going to be around 20 years from now? I don't know. Possibly. They've hit good enough traction that possibly they are. Are they probably going to be around for at least the next 4 years? I don't see any reason they wouldn't be. And so if I was buying that lower trend line, it would just be a bigger bet that as money comes back into the market, then Compound will go a lot higher than where it is now if I were buying blue chips. So for me, am I buying it? Nope. So if I were buying blue chips, yeah, probably I would add to a position here. People say, what if it goes lower? Well, that happens to me all the time, and that's okay. Happened to me with that Axie Infinity. It didn't stop me from making 100x, though. Yes, if I had bought it at the very bottom, it would have went 300x to where I sold. Or I think from where I bought it went like, what did it go? From about, I put about $4,100 in. It went to about 12, somewhere between 10 to 12 million had I held all the way to the peak. And so what is that? 3,000x. So if I bought at the very bottom, it would have been a 9,000 ride from the bottom to the top, a 9,000x. But I didn't have a magic crystal ball. I didn't know where the bottom would be, and I didn't know where the top would be. So with compound, is that the bottom? I don't know, but I like the lower trend line, and it sometimes does break through. So then I just hold it till money does come in the market, and we see if I was right. All right, let's look at the next one, LANC.
Yeah, LANC. This is a great example of a market that has changed its trading signature. So what was a very small, or smooth, I should say, not small, it was a smooth downward trend, quite a big downward trend. And then suddenly a big spike in volatility and a move to the upside. So this is a perfect example of the trend changing and the dynamics changing, which is something that we have to accept and go with. So what does this mean? I mean, this should be the start of a new bull market. Anything that's this aggressive, I would expect it to sort of settle down in terms of volatility and then the trend to resume. So it's moved up and it's made two peaks that some people might say that's a double top. It doesn't really fit the criteria for a double top to me, which is usually a trend ending signal, because that normally comes right at the end of a major trend. So it would have trended up for a long time, and this hasn't trended for a long time. It's just moved up very quickly in a short space of time. So it's quite volatile within this range, and what we really need to see is a break of the upper resistance line to confirm a continuation pattern. But when you have these more thinly traded markets with little data, they can be pushed around by individuals with big positions. So it becomes less about market, the collective market mind, and it's about an individual. And the individuals are much harder to predict compared to the broader market. So that's just another way of saying we have to accept more kind of volatile random price action, because it could be pushed around by an individual or smaller individuals that are not part of the broader market. But having said that, this isn't a consolidation, so a bit of a correction is fine. It's above its 200, is above the 200-day moving average, and I think that's enough to maintain a bullish position. So clearly, it is on the risky side of trading, because it is volatile and it has only just come out, or it was fairly recently that it came out of this bear trend. And step one is that it breaks out. Step two is that it shows signs of continuation and that it wasn't just a flash in the pan rally. But overall, I don't think I can fault where it is now. It's trying to make a higher low here. This may go into a nice triangular constriction, which I'd like to see, and then it would be nice to break the upper bound of that to confirm the bull market, which is what I'd be waiting for, really. So if I was a long-term investor in this and I like the potential odds of where it is, could nibble some here. I have a nice place to bail out if it goes wrong, which would be below the 200-day moving average, or any break of this support, which should be, as it was resistance and it was the kickoff point for the breakout, it shouldn't break below that point. So I have a cushion, and that's what I like to see. It's moved up. There's a cushion away from the low, and that favors the probability of the upside. So I'm still a wait, just because I want to see this volatility settle down a little bit. But overall, it wouldn't take much to turn that wait to a buy.
Yeah, this one is very thinly traded. It's got a really low market cap, and sometimes I like that. It depends on what I'm seeing. So market cap under 1 million, I like that part of it. Is I've been researching this over the past just 2 minutes. Let me tell you a major red flag I ran into. So I like it versus the fully diluted market cap means a large percentage of their tokens vested. They launched in 2021. That's okay. So what is Lanceria? Well, it's freelance work, right? So let me just click on here, go to the website. And it's like freelance your way through life. Now, let me ask you, what benefits does blockchain bring to this idea of like freelance? Because they have like Elance or I don't remember, Upwork and some of the centralized services. What value does blockchain bring to that? Maybe a little bit, because you can like escrow the payments through smart contracts these days. So that part's cool. Okay, so maybe there's something blockchain can bring to this that makes blockchain worth it for people to, because all these people are using all these other sites. Why are they going to change? Well, only if there's something that makes it even better. And the idea of the escrowing it through smart contracts is good. But as I was looking through this, I was like, okay, who are the people behind this? I still don't know that. In fact, they don't even have it anywhere on their website that I can see. And so I opened up their white paper and was looking through it. Nothing about the team. And then I'm like, oh, and here they're talking about specifically the Romanian market. And I'm like, oh, well, great. They're launching in Romania. Okay, that's the economic hotbed of the world or not. I'm out. I'm completely out on that. Unless there's something I don't know. I can't find who the team is. They're targeted to the Romanian market and things. It's not that they can't launch in Romania and go bigger from there, but like, I can't see who the team is. I can't see what's going on. And maybe with further research, I would find out all that information. So based on what I know now, which is not a complete picture of it, and I'm only one person, I can't do all the research across every of the, 30,000 or 40,000 projects there are. I would just have to say total pass on this for me, because I'm just not seeing enough, and I don't know who the team is. I'm like, no, even though it's like, okay, that is in an ideal range. But what I want to find is market caps are in an ideal range where I can figure out who the team is. I can figure out why this one has a better chance than normal of succeeding, because realize most new startups fail in every industry. Crypto's no different. In fact, crypto probably even a higher failure rate because there's a bunch of scam ones too that raise funds. And so I'm just out on this one. What would that be?
I think that's very sensible. You've got to know who you're dealing with, really. I mean, it doesn't take much to put the details.
And there are very limited reasons why a team won't identify themselves or be non-doxed. And even those situations found, there was one I invested in, and why they're creating a privacy coin. And we've seen the reason why it's important not to be doxed when you're creating privacy coin. But the problem is, when they were on the Solana blockchain, and when Solana was not doing well and the whole ecosystem, Solana not doing well, they lost a bunch of their devs. And what usually happens is the team continues to push through if they're doxed, because they don't want to ruin their reputation. What did this team do? No, they minted like 10 million coins, dumped them into the liquidity on the swap exchange, and then disappeared. Why? Because nobody even knew their identity, so there was no reputational loss. And that was unfortunate, because actually their product worked really good, but Solana was not doing well, the Solana chain was not doing well, and the general market wasn't doing well. And because their identity wasn't even revealed, it was just too easy for them to give up and walk away and suffer no harm to their reputation, because nobody knew who they were. All right. Let's take a look at Formation Finance. Now, this is one I have not been able to get on the channel. I reached out again, and the person I reached out to is no longer working with the team. And I asked him if he could connect me up to somebody on the team, and no response on that. They did do a major rebranding shift, but we'll see. I can't get them on the team or on the. Yeah, I can't get them to join us on the channel. I think one of the initial guys I did speak to on a video call that wouldn't come on the channel back then, I think he's still with the team, but I don't know his Telegram or information. I don't even remember his name. And so I don't know who to reach out to see if they'll come on the channel, because I would love to have them on the channel because I'm invested. I have millions of Form tokens.
Yeah, it's from a technical point of view, we have looked at it before, because these lines were on before when I just popped the chart up, so it remembered them. It wasn't looking good last time. We've got these lower highs pressing it into the all-time low on the chart, which it has now broken through. So that concern has not gone away. In fact, it's got worse. So yeah, it's still trending down. This is never something that I ever would buy. If someone buys it at these levels, great, good luck to them. But there'd have to be a very good reason. But technically, until we can't start talking about a bull market until at least we recover this support level. In technicals, what you want to happen here is you want to see some form of stabilization of price action, and then a consolidation period, which would normally involve some form of base building, and then the continuation of a bull market. Until we get that stabilization, the risk is still lower, and we can't say where that's going to start. It could start here, which would be great if it started here and then went up, and then all this price action here would be part of the base. But at the moment, it's just following this downward trend. There's no signals to say that this trend is over. We had this sideways price action for a bit, which was okay. It was good. It was potentially forming a base. But this is why in the previous one I was saying I'd rather buy it when it's higher up, because it's confirming that the base has been built, rather than trying to buy it against a support level when it's not confirming it yet. And we're seeing a worrying trend of, see this peak, and this peak. They're all lower. And that's a warning sign. And all these peaks are lower. So they were pressing the market down. And then we've got this downward trend. So we could draw in a new downward trend line and say, at the very least, it's got to break back above this one. That'd be a bare minimum before we could start talking about a buy. But ultimately, it needs to get back above this 2 cents level, or 0.2% level, before we can start thinking about this being a base. So it's got a lot of work to do. So for me, it's a sell here.
When it falls off a cliff like that, then I guess they went through a rebrand, though I'm having a hard time getting the information on that. Their new name is every.finance, but I can't find every.finance. So I have their old stuff. This is their Twitter, formation.finance. Doesn't say anything about the rebrand on their old Twitter, which is a flag, right? This is when things are going bad. And I could never get them to come on the channel. They did say, oh, yeah, down the road. And always a concern, because I've never seen a call on them. And this is some of the risks that I take as an investor. Am I invested in this? Yes, I have millions of tokens. I probably have $20,000 in this project, invested in this project. And there's a chance, I'd say a strong chance, that that's probably gone. Now, at this point, am I selling? No, I'm too stubborn for that. At this point, I just leave it as falling off a cliff. And if they did do a rebrand and maybe even a different token, they'll probably like airdrop the new token. So I can't find evidence on what's happening, but that's what that chart usually looks like when they're airdropping a new token and the past one becomes irrelevant, is you see it fall off a cliff like what we're seeing here. So maybe that's what's happened. I'm not sure, but yeah, this isn't looking good for Formation Finance at all. So it looks like they had a AMA, but notice too on their social media stuff, this is way back in November of 2022. November 2022, December 2022. That was 6 months ago. And trying to search for every .finance. I'm getting nothing. Every finance, nothing. Maybe somebody knows, but I don't know. So am I buying more? Oh no. I'm not getting enough information to know that the team is alive and well. Their market cap is, their market cap super juicy. Fantastic. But so are the market caps of many dead projects. Is this dead? I don't know. But at this point, am I going to sell? No. I'll just let it ride. Now, there was a point in time where I was concerned that Axie Infinity, the team was still working, but I was concerned that the team didn't have enough experience. They had a lot of passion, but I was very concerned that they didn't have enough experience to pull it off. Helped that down the road, and Imoca Brands partnered with them and bought some equity, I think, in the company. And so then they brought their expertise to bear. That helped a lot. But at a certain point, it had just gone down, and it seemed like the team was working hard, but I didn't know if they had the expertise to pull it off. But I was too stubborn to sell it to lows, and I just decided to hold on, end up paying off really big in that situation. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just goes down further. What will happen here? I don't know. But I'm not selling at these prices. I'll just hold it till it goes to zero, or maybe it turns around and does great. Oh, well, that's one of the risks I told you, that like some go to zero. Some do really go to zero or near zero, right? They truly don't usually go to zero. They just go to a really, really low price. It might as well be zero. Brian Miller, maybe form should be short for formaldehyde because this one is toast. Yeah, and it's sad, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's 20K I could have invested somewhere else, but that's just the risk that you take. Not every one of these risks works out, and I wish they did, but that's an expectation that's never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you could say charitably that maybe they're so busy, sorting things out, that's why they haven't come back. But it's a big red flag, isn't it, at the moment? So, so we shall see. We shall see.
Let's jump on to the next. And Nick, I saw your question. We'll see if we have time to get to it. Solen still live. Let's see. We still have AADA to look at, which that chart looks much better than what we're just looking at.
Yeah. Actually, I think that might have been one that. Oh yes, here we go. Yeah. So on CoinMarketCap, we've got this chart. For some reason, I can't get it on CoinTrader, which is strange, or even on TradingView, which is strange because it does say that it's there. But anyway, so yeah, this chart obviously looks night and day compared to the previous chart. We are seeing volatility as it's approaching the previous high. So we've got this spike here. This is a really interesting technical pattern, which you usually see. I know we're talking about what happened here, but it is in the context of where the market is now. What you see at the end of a trend, and that's probably a big trend that built up to that, is this spike pattern. And the spike pattern tells you that the market has just got so excited and it's hit a high, and then there's been a load of selling that's pushed it all the way back down again. And that's usually the end of the trend. And that's what happened from there. The bear market started. So that was a starting gun. Now, right up there, what do you think the sentiment was like? It was probably really, really bullish. And it comes back to what we were talking about before. The market is forward looking. So it's not where we are now. It's where is it going to go next? So since then, we've had this bear trend, which ended with this consolidation, and the market is now moving in a nice upward trend. So I think from when we last looked at this in this triangle, I was talking about this triangular constriction breaking out. I have to put the cursor down here. See this area here above where the cursor is? That was a really nice triangular constriction. It went into a point and then broke higher with a really nice strong candle. So that for me was the buy point, and I do remember talking about that on the show. So it's come up and it's come back down to it, the buy point, which can happen. It's come to retest it, but the overall trend is still bullish, and it's actually quite incredible that this is doing this in the face of the broader market, given that the broader market is actually still in a consolidation and not quite as bullish as this. So it's one of the more bullish charts that we can see. Now, the caveat is things can change, of course. So this is just probability. But the chart at the moment is still looking good. So for me, it's still a buy. We expect to see a bit of selling coming in as the people who held it all the way over here, and you'd be surprised, people do remember what happened at these levels. If they're waiting to get their money back, they're going to be selling into this rally. So there will be a bit of wood to chop around these levels all the way up to where the previous high was, which is around 171. So I'm not expecting a smooth ride, but the fact that it's up here tells me that there's a good probability that this wants to go much higher than that. Especially at this point in the cycle with where everything else is, it seems to be leading the way. So for me, it's a buy, and I'd like to give levels where I would start to be concerned about it. Usually it's what the price action looks like. So if it gives some form of sell signal in the form of a spike or a double top or head and shoulders or something like that, given that the broader market may be coming lower, wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see it come back down to 122, 123. $1.21 perhaps, but I'd hope that it turns around a bit quicker than that. It feels like there are buyers looking to pick it up on retracements, but overall trend is still bullish, so I've got to go with that.
Yeah. So AADA Finance, it's done tremendous in the last little while, and in fact, against the trend of the general market, like they've crushed it. Now, is this a buy, wait, or sell for me? I just have a different feeling than Paul on this, and then I start to get concerned. This starts to be like a take profit zone for me right now. I don't presently own any AADA. I bought back here and I sold during all this, and I didn't stock up when what was going here because I like the two people behind the team, but I connected them up with some people over at IOG. One of the people at IOG says, they don't listen to my advice. They think they know it all. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I was like, look, there's a chance that they're right. Maybe they do know it all, and maybe it will come together well, and maybe it won't. I just can't tell here. So I didn't buy back when it hit its lows again, because I assigned it higher risk than what I could gauge. I didn't know. Now, it turns out their ideas were pretty darn good, and they did know what they were talking about. And so it's done really well. And so it is a risk that I didn't take that paid off pretty well for those that did. And it's at previous highs. Now, the general market trend the rains haven't come where the general market trend just goes crazy. And so when things hit numbers like this in a mostly sideways or down or maybe starting to go up market, with my principles, I take profits. Now, I might not pull it all out, but I take profits because sometimes it hits this and it bounces pretty hard down over the months that follow. And I just learned that during the last bear market that I needed to take profits, because what would happen is it would go up to a price. I'd get all excited that it was just going to keep going up, only to find out that often it doesn't until the rains come back in. Now, perhaps AADA leads the whole market further and continues to go further. I don't have a magic crystal ball, so that's why I take profits when it gets to a pretty good number again, because I don't have a magic crystal ball and I can't tell if it's going to keep going up. Do I buy at this level? No, I wait. As far as buying more, if I'm not in it, I'm going to buy. I'm going to wait to see what it does. If it breaks up a solid break up to the upside, I might take a small swing trade. But for now, if I have a bunch, I'm taking some profits. If I don't have some, it's just a wait. So I'm going to have to write it as a wait. They have done incredible things, and it seems like them going their own way because they know it all. I remember when LeBron James said, like, he made this claim that, like, I'm the greatest of all time and we will win a championship this year. And I was like, that's a bold claim. He better deliver on that or he's going to look like an idiot. You know what? He delivered on it. So did he look like an idiot? No, he looked prescient, right? So they thought, no, we're not going to go that way. We know it all. Is it turning out? It's looking like it turned out like they're winning the championship. So I have to give it to the team. Good job to AADA Finance's team. All right. Let's take a look at Decimated. Then we might have a few minutes to get to OMI and some other things.
Yeah. Decimated, probably not the best name for a coin, I wouldn't have thought. But in any case, it has done this reversal of this downward trend. So it's starting something interesting here. The question of whether it can build on that remains to be seen. But there's some really nice little technical levels that we can look out for. So first of all, downward trend. It's stopped around this point here, which is exactly where it is stopping on the rally. Let's put a line there just to show where that turning point is. And so you see how it was bouncing there and then broke it and then tried to break it, and it was acted as resistance. So support reversed into resistance, went all the way down. Now it's reversing out here, which is nice. Good to see that the new trend has started. But then again, it's finding resistance at this point again. So this could turn into a triangular constriction, but it needs to hold over this level here, which is 1/8 of a cent. If it does, it will make a nice little higher low, and then this will look triangular, which is usually a build-up to a break higher. So regardless of how it does that, I think for me, it needs to break this 1 cent level, 1.2 cent level, before I would get bullish. But if I'd be tempted as it's approaching it to maybe get some, because if it approaches it, then obviously the chances of it breaking increases the closer it gets to it. And it seems to be attracted by this level. So nice little beginning of an upward trend that started from here. But I'd have to wait to see how it trades and whether it trades through this resistance point before I could get excited about it. So it's in a nice consolidation. And I think if everything else was, burning hotter, I might be tempted to buy it here. But given that we're just in a little bit of a pause period with everything else, I'd be more tempted to wait and see.
Great job. Here's my thoughts on Decimated, which is in the gaming industry. And Paul, I love that. Terribly, they might want to choose a different name because their price has been absolutely decimated. But so was Axie Infinity's price, right? So from where I bought it at the launch, the price got decimated from there before it did really good. Now, will Decimated do well as a project? They continue. Their Twitter is very active, and they do a good job putting out updates on the development of the game. It's like a first-person shooter game in a post-modernistic world, kind of like Mad Max-ish type world. A little bit more technologically savvy than maybe Mad Max type world, but it looks cool. Here's the business pressures on it. Did they raise enough funds to continue to survive and develop to where money comes back into blockchain gaming again? I think they did, and I think they'll make it, but I don't know. And so as long as they're spending their money really wisely and they're cautious on it, then they'll be able to keep going till the rains come in. When the rains come in, everything that's a halfway decent project just blossoms like crazy. And then the market goes through a correction again, and a lot of things get shaken out. So will they probably make it to the next boom? Well, it depends on how far away that next boom is, and I don't have my magic crystal ball to tell. There's signs that it might be in the coming months, but it might not also be for another year, maybe even 2 years. And so if it's 2 years from now, that's going to be really rough for a gaming development company to survive that long without more funding or their project tokens being worth a lot so they can get more capital. And so I like this one. Let's look at where its market cap is, because that always has everything to do with it. Now, do I have a bunch of Decimated? I do. They're on the Solana chain, which, boy, the Solana chain's been a massive disappointment. Massive disappointment. a lot of what we were hoping is, well, Alameda Research and FTX is really big on the Solana chain and they're propping it up. And the more we learned about the people behind FTX and Alameda Research, it was just a house of cards there, and they were not good people. So this Solana ecosystem has suffered, and their token on Solana, though they can always bridge over to something else. Their current market cap is 3 million. Their fully diluted market cap 8.4 million. I like that part of it. I like, oh, excuse me, I wasn't sharing my screen. I like that they're way down and way cheap, right? So that can't be right. It's showing it traded clear back in 2019. That is not the case with Decimated. Huh. It is more like it launched, I think, somewhere around here and then just kind of fell off like this. So I like this one. I picked up some, and I'm just going to hold them because I think when the rains come back in, that blockchain gaming will do tremendous. Now, ultimately, will this be a top 10 played game in the world? Well, I would hope so. I can't say that it is. I didn't know Axie Infinity, of all things, would make it to the 10th highest played game in the world, even for a brief period of time. I never would have guessed that. Are they good enough, the team and what I'm seeing from the development, that I've taken this risk? Yes. And they're at a pretty decent price now. So I just hold and hope that things come together and it does well. Great. So for me, at this price, it's even a buy. It's not as good as it was, but it might get cheaper again. It wouldn't be a big buy. It would be like a nibble buy. And just for diversification, right? A little bit here, a little bit there, and diversify. Not only the diversification is the safety net that I use, but also because things sometimes run at different times. And so when things run at different times, say I had bought a bunch of AADA when things were low, one of the things I'd be doing now is not only would I be taking profits out, I'd be diversifying into other projects that I really like that are at lows. And that's one of the things that diversification offers you when you're diversified, because projects often run at different times from each other. Great suggestions by all the team members. Let's jump into some viewer picks for just a bit. I did want to go to ADA because we haven't looked at it so long. And one of the viewers asked us to look at Cardano. And I thought, it's been forever. And I like Cardano, and they continue to impress me. I was supporting them when nobody was supporting them back in 2019, 2020. And by nobody, there were still some tight-knit members. You're seeing Omi and the Omi family go through a similar level of frustration and FUD and people panicking out and leaving and cursing it. And Cardano was absolutely going through that in 2019 and 2020 because it had been 5 years since they really started, and they didn't even have a test net or main net yet. So there was truly no use to the token yet. And it had been 5 years. And so they're like, this is vaporware. This is never going to happen. And Charles explained the delays, and it all made sense to me and why there were big delays. And yes, they had failed on all their timelines. And here's why. And those explanations made sense to me, so I bought it. And did really well. Went all the way to $3.40, and now it's correct. So let's look at whether it's a buy, a wait, or a sell.
I think where it is at the moment for me, it's just going to be a bit of a wait, just because it's consolidating. We talked about the reversal of this downward trend and how it formed enough of a base and had broken through this trend line that turned the bearish trend into a bullish phase. But it seems clear that it's not got enough momentum to move into a smooth upward trend just yet. But I still think that this is a positive trend and a good one to follow. So I'd maintain a positive view on it. It seems like it's just going to be a bit more sideways before the trend continues higher. So what often happens, or what can happen, is when a market breaks in a really important trend line, it comes back and uses it as support, which it did here. And there was also this resistance line that we were following, and it's come back and it's just sitting on that right now. So it's at a pretty good level here to start a rally, but I can't say for sure. The 200-day moving average is actually, I think it's very close to it as well. It's all come into this one point here. So, yeah, there should be really good support where we are now. But I do think, broadly speaking, the outlook is bullish because it's ended its bear trend at the same time as the broader market. I'm bullish on the broader market. I see no reason why this shouldn't be correlated. It's just the price action is just showing we're in a temporary kind of sideways range. And I think that will pick up probably, in the next few months. So I'm just allowing a little bit more for a correction before that happens. As I say, current level is looking really interesting. We'll see if that holds. But overall, I'm bullish on it. But I'm going to be waiting just a bit longer because I want to see some form of upward move, impulsive move, to kick off the next phase of this trend, which, if it's going to be good, it's going to be a very big move. So I don't mind letting a little bit on the table and for the surety that it's actually started. But I think we'll see it elsewhere. I think we'll see everything else move. And this, if it does delay, there'll be time to get in.
Yes, great suggestion by one of our viewers. I love this lower trend line that we're at. And just over time, this is where technical analysis has helped merge with my fundamental analysis, right? Do I understand technical analysis at the level Paul does? I wish. I'm not even close to understanding at the level Paul does. But technical analysis has benefited my fundamental analysis. And so when I like something long-term and it's within a long-term value range that I think Cardano is well within that long-term value range, I'd then like to buy the lower trend line. Can it go lower? Yes, and it might. I don't know. I don't have that magic crystal ball, but I love it at this price, right? So Cardano, gosh, they're implementing Hydra. If Hydra is successful, it will take one of these Ethereum killer chains, because this is a third generation blockchain specifically by one of the founders of Ethereum, who was frustrated because the team wouldn't go away he thought they should. And so he broke off and did his own thing, and he learned from making Ethereum and what were the major hangups. And so his background for making an Ethereum killer type chain is amazing. Now, will it compete with Ethereum? I think Ethereum will always be around, but we've seen what gas fees can do when one project goes really big. So Pepe, which is tradable on Uniswap, has driven Ethereum fees on the chain to crazy numbers. And fixing that's still going to take years and years. And is ETH ever going to get to a point where they can really handle millions of transactions per second? No, I don't see that they will. But Cardano might have that solved in the coming year. And if they do, what a big deal that is. So Cardano has always been like, buy some of the Bitcoiners who then trade a little bit of Ether, like, oh, they're the redheaded stepchild. Boy, that redheaded stepchild is brilliant and had a good plan from the beginning. Took longer than they wanted, but continues to deliver solidly. And I remember a year and a half ago, people were like, Solana is going to crush Cardano. How's that worked out? Not well, right? Cardano continues to chug along with amazing things, and Solana has been crushed. Now, could Solana still end up doing well? Yeah, and I hope it does. But Cardano and the Cardano ecosystem, I just like better. And so I don't hold a lot of blue chips. In fact, almost none. But Cardano is one of the ones I hold. And if I were stocking up on blue chips, I would be buying this lower trend line like crazy. That's my thought. So for me, it definitely gets a buy. Great suggestion. Let's take a look at OMI for our OMI homies there, because OMI at the current price is another one that I absolutely love.
So nice trend line, by the way. I like that. That was really good. On OMI, unfortunately, the situation is pretty much the same as I mentioned before. We're still in this downward trend. This is the trend line that was in from last time. We broke and below significant support. So I can't say that this is a buy as yet. It's got to recover this at the very least, or form some form of reversal pattern. Inverse head and shoulders, double bottom, or spike lower. I get that it might be, from a fundamental point of view, a really attractive potentially attractive level here, but from the technicals, the price action's got to respond. Yes, there has been some small movement off the lows, but that's not enough of a margin for me to be comfortable that it's actually changing the structure of the trend. The signature is still in a downward trend, so we need a little bit more. So breaking this downward trend line would be the first sign, or getting over the medium-term moving average. So 60-day moving average, something like that it will track the market a bit closer. So you can think of this as an automatic trend line. If it gets over that, that'll be the first sign. Okay, it's looking better. We can start looking at whether there's a reversal pattern or there's other signs to suggest that it's going to go higher. See, I wouldn't let it get through this other downward trend line, this stronger one here. If it gets through there, then to me it trips to a buy, but it hasn't done that yet, and that's quite far away. So even if it was to consolidate and go sideways, it would give it the opportunity to eventually break that line and show a bullish pattern. But these are all things that it needs to do. I need to wait to see that it's done them before I can change my view. So for the moment, it's a wait, sort of verging on a sell, because the trend is still downwards, I'm afraid. But it doesn't take much to turn these things around either, I would say. So we're not, in the same sense that we're close to the low, we're actually not that far away from some decent support that it could claw its way back to, and then the picture would look completely different. So we shall see, and I do hope it does turn around, because I really like the sound of the the fundamentals. So I could be missing out on some really great levels, and I'll be saying, yeah, I should have just listened to you and bought some.
Yeah, I love the prices that this is at. In fact, I've been racking my brain of how can I accumulate more, even though I bought some more a couple weeks ago. I'm just like, gosh, it's just so juicy. Now, Comey, I did invest in their pre-sale 2018. I forgot about it during the bear market because I use mostly YouTube, and nobody was talking about it on YouTube for my research and other things. Nobody was interviewing the project founders. They were probably on Twitter, but I used Twitter a little bit. Like, I created a Twitter account in 2017. Couldn't get Crypto Rain with one N, even back in 2017. So I had to get Crypto Rain with two N's because somebody had already taken Crypto Rain, though they weren't even using it. And so I had a Twitter account, but I didn't follow them. And so I didn't get any news on them and kind of forgot about them until 2021. But at the pre-sale, I liked their idea of having these digital collectibles. And in the meantime, during that bear market, they got some really good intellectual property for their digital collectibles, and things have only gotten better that way. On the fundamental side, there's a lot of the community members just super frustrated. Why? Because the price has only gone down over the past 2 years. And so the same thing that Cardano went through, and this price, let me share this. This doesn't fully show it. Let's see if I can get one that goes back even farther than what Binance is. I would like to be able to go, okay, let's remove all these things. But this is what everyone is like, I totally would have bought Cardano way back in the bear market, but would you have? Because this is what their charts look like. And this was when I was buying Cardano, is about here. And it sucked because I bought some at 11 cents here, and then it fell down. And then I bought some more, and it fell down, it fell down, it fell down, it fell down. And it I think my lowest buy was at 3 cents. It ended up bottoming out a little bit later at 1.7 cents. And people like to say that if they could rewind time, they would have bought then. But would they have? Yeah, only if they lived in the future and then went back in the past, because they would not have bought then, because what was happening? Most people were selling, not buying. Why? Cardano had been in the works since 2015, probably even before, and did not even have a test net. And they were just so sick and tired of the delays, and it's vaporware and it's never going to happen. And the teams made all these bad decisions and blah, blah, blah. And isn't that the stuff we're hearing about Omi right now? But what I looked at is Cardano from the beginning took a slower approach, and yes, there have been some delays, and it took them 3 years to architect out the chain, or 4 years before they even started programming a single line of code. And so that's been delayed, and like the actual programming is going delayed. But like if you had a computer science background, you know that that's how you're supposed to build something that can withstand the test of time. And yet most projects weren't doing that. Solana being one of the main ones. They were just, hey, let's build and it will break and then we'll fix it. But that way we can have something to show for our work. And Cardano took the slower, harder approach where you get a lot more criticism. And boy, was the criticism strong. So Omi didn't take that same approach necessarily. People are frustrated because there's been delays, and lots of delays, not just a few delays, but lots. And guess what? People don't have a lot of patience in the crypto space. I was joined Queen Vivi or at Lori Brenner on Twitter for her channel yesterday. She does a lot of Twitter spaces. I joined her on a 2.5 hour long Twitter space yesterday, and it was a lot of fun. And she was talking about the comet collectors who have come over to Vivi, because comet collectors are used to long time frames. What happens when some new comet comes out they think is going to be big? They buy it, they then sleeve it, and they put it in a closet for like 10 years. And so they just know it takes a long time. And in the crypto space, it's like, I bought it and it's been 6 months and it's done nothing. I hate this project. I'm out. And that happens all the time. It's like, no, what are your expectations, right? So you've heard me on this channel talk about you should have at least a 5-year time frame, and maybe even longer, because that's what it takes. So buying some of these things is lots of patience. So you do your research and you find companies that have a narrative that seems like it has a strong chance of success. You're then like trying to then buy it when it's at lows, and then you're waiting till things turn around. And Omi is at these massive lows. And so unfortunately for a lot of people, that's when they then sell, is at these lows. But what have I told you? I love this lower trend line area. Now it's not quite as cheap as it was. It's, you know, it got as low as 0.55 cents or 0.055 cents. Okay, it's at roughly 0.06 cents. That's amazing in my book. Its market cap is, though I usually don't buy things with a market cap in the 200 million range. Am I buying Omi? Yes, because one of the reasons I don't usually buy projects whose market cap is in this range is because their potential, they don't have a very likely chance of, even if things go really well, to have 100x happen. But Omi, if things go really well, does have that chance to go 100x from here and possibly more. So it's a rare one. Now, will it? Hope so. I don't have that magic crystal ball. Still don't have it. So it's just a bet I'm taking. Their market cap versus their fully diluted market cap is good. Have there been massive delays? Yes, it seems like they fixed the systemic problems that was delaying all their rollouts, and they're rolling out things at a pretty good pace now, and they're doing a pretty dang good job on their tech dev. I'm super happy with what I'm seeing on the tech dev side. So on the fundamental side, I'm happier because it seems like they've fixed the major problems. And on the price side, it's gotten even cheaper, which for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, Christmas is here. This is so amazing. Are you kidding me? And then people are like, what are you talking about? Omi's terrible. And I'm like, thank you for saying that. I needed to hear that, because if there weren't people massively fudding on it, I would think I was wrong. But because there's people screaming the sky is falling and it's never going to do well, like that's one of my signals that then I do fundamental analysis on a project. And if the fundamentals look good and I'm hearing that, that's what tells me, yes, oh my gosh, this is an even better possible home run than I thought. So thank you for those people fudding on it. You've confirmed for me that I love it at this price. So absolutely, it's a buy, 100% for me. Make your own decision. We're all big boys, big girls here. Everyone gets to make their own decisions. I say follow this channel so you learn to think like an investor. Part of that is taking full responsibility for the decisions you make, because I won't give you financial advice. But for me at this price, I love it. Absolutely a buy. Jay over here with the truth. Listen to your own and other people's emotions, then do the opposite. That is the Rainmaker way. Yes, That is what it takes to be a counter-cyclical trader. And it's hard because you got to have the bravery to do your own research and then trust your research even when other people are screaming like little children, which happens way more in the space than you would think. At least in Paul's space, Paul is mostly dealing with like emotionally educated people. Sometimes in the crypto space, we are dealing with emotional children.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about markets. They're all basically the same. So all markets operate on the basis of emotion, and you see it all over the place. I mean, do you remember when we were talking about sterling and how UK politics had sent the pound crashing? Well, it was an amazing buy, and sentiment was just too negative. I mean, there's so many examples of it. That's why it just takes a bit of time. And like you say, you've got to be in the markets for a long time. Define a long time. I mean, a good few years to see lots of cycles. And that's the interesting thing about the crypto space. In a very short space of time, you are witnessing kind of compressed cycles that would normally play out over much longer periods of time. So that's the interesting thing about it. You get these bull markets, you get these bear markets, but just look at the sentiment that we've seen over the last year and where the lows were and where the highs were. You'll see that the sentiment is completely diametrically opposed to those major lows and major highs.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is no barrier to entry in the crypto space. So literally anyone can invest in it, which means anyone can invest in it, even if they have the emotional intelligence of a child. And when sentiment gets bearish, what are they going to do? They're going to scream the loudest, and they're going to FUD on things. And you're seeing some of that in the OMI space because they're just emotionally unprepared to think like investors. They don't even realize this is the investing space. To them, it's kind of like the gambling space. And that is what they're doing, gambling, because they're not making emotionally sound analysis and then making decisions based on analysis. They're just chasing green candles, throwing money in, and when it reverses on them, because it so often does when you chase big green candles, then they're just kicking and screaming like little children and calling everything, a rug pull and a scam project. And that's the emotional IQ of a child. And I hate that people do that because there are those that don't want anybody but sophisticated investors to be able to invest in the crypto space. And they use people like that as the justification behind it because they say, look, they're just not emotionally prepared. So unless you have assets over $1 million and Gary Gensler wants to raise it to $10 million, they don't want you to be able to invest in this space. Why? Because you're just emotionally unprepared. You're not financially sophisticated enough. What is the real reason? Well, so that all their friends don't have to compete with you and bid the price up. They can buy and you don't have the opportunity to buy. And then they can later dump on you through an initial public offering or something. That's why. All right. Thank you for all your suggestions. Paul, thank you so much for your time. It's been a fantastic show. Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
All the viewers for joining us. Remember, give me your suggestions for ones you want us to review next week. Paul, we appreciate you making Thursday happen, even though you couldn't make it Wednesday.
Always love the show. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for all the picks and look forward to next week.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, so obviously I'm very passionate about this space. I hope you're able to catch the Twitter space yesterday with @Lori Brenner on Twitter. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, go ahead and follow me. There's this interesting thing happening with Twitter, and let me show you my Twitter. I haven't put a lot of focus in building my Twitter, but I suspect Elon Musk has bigger plans for Twitter. And Elon Musk is a freaking genius. Now, right now, there's not a huge competitor to YouTube. There's Rumble, and Rumble's doing a decent job, and I am streaming this to Rumble as well, which does now have streaming. But Rumble's doing a good job at moving forward and catching up. But I suspect Elon Musk has some bigger plans to make Twitter much more video friendly. I am streaming this to the Twitter space. In fact, probably we'll be able to see it right there. Now, the problem right now is you can't necessarily comment on it in the same way you can with the videos, but wouldn't be surprised if he has some bigger plans that if Twitter over time doesn't become a better comparator to YouTube, because we all know on YouTube, I voiced some thoughts in the middle of our growth. We were growing at about 4,500 subscribers per month, and I happened to voice some thoughts on a certain injection that was going on, and all of a sudden my subscriber growth got decimated. And ever since then, we've actually not even grown since 18 months ago after I mentioned that. Probably got blacklisted for my thoughts on that. Is that fair? No. They're a platform though, and there's not a strong competitor yet. But Twitter is becoming the free speech platform, and if they really nail it with long form content, which is what YouTube is, then it will be a great competitor, and I will love that. And meanwhile, hopefully Rumble continues to do better to make it easier to work with. It is pretty hard to add it as a stream to be able to stream there, but they are a much better free speech platform. Because should I have been banned? Well, everything I said turned out to be right and true. Does it matter to them? Not at all. Because I said something they didn't want me to say. They made my growth on YouTube. They completely stunted it. And oh well, the growth of this channel was never meant to be the biggest channel in crypto. It was to attract an audience that's willing to learn to think like an investor and take the time and the patience that it learns over the coming 5 years. And that was the goal with this channel. Now, would it be helpful if it were bigger? Yes, because if we had 150,000 subscribers, we could get any project we wanted on anytime we wanted. So I'm mad at YouTube for that. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next time. This wrap, well, you know what this wrap is all about. See you later.
Into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. It was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Thinking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.